Welcome to our course on how to research. My name is Sydney, and in this lesson, we'll discuss how to research a new topic. In other words, when you receive a resolution for the very first time, after this lesson, you'll know how to start researching that resolution and what the first steps you should take are to understanding what it's about. As you start researching or you talk to other debaters, there's different terms and vocabulary they might use to describe what they're doing, and it's important to understand what some of those terms mean. One of the terms that debaters often use is card or cards. A card is a piece of evidence that someone reads during a debate round. Debaters often refer to cards or evidence as EV for short. Cut is another term that refers to the process of actually making a card or making a piece of evidence that you can read during a debate round. If you have any questions about other terms that we use during this course, feel free to post them in the discussion section. The first step that you should take when you're researching a new topic is to define important words in the resolution. You can imagine that research for debate rounds is similar to drawing a soccer field. If the topic is a field, then the words in the resolution are the fence. In the same way that you wouldn't want to start playing a game of soccer without knowing exactly where the field is, you wouldn't want to start researching a debate topic without knowing what exactly the debate topic is about. In other words, we need to know what the boundaries of the topic are before we can find information about that topic. By defining the most important words in the resolution, we can see generally what the topic is about, and then we can be better researchers and find specifically articles and information that is about the topic rather than something unrelated to the topic. So our next question naturally might be, what words should we define first? There are tons of different words in the resolution, and some of them are more important than others, and how do we know which ones we should start defining? As you continue research, you will probably find definitions for every word in the resolution. But when you're starting to research a topic for the very first time, you should start by defining the words that you think are absolutely the most important for understanding the topic or what the topic is about. To understand what we mean by this, let's look at a couple examples. Specifically, let's take a look at this resolution. Resolved. The United States federal government should substantially reduce its restrictions on legal immigration to the United States. So what do we think are the most important words in this resolution that we would want to define when we first start researching it? So first, we would want to know what legal immigration is. When we start researching this topic, we can easily see the topic is about immigration, and specifically it's about legal immigration. And we'd want to know exactly what the topic means by legal immigration. Does legal immigration only include immigration of people who are seeking citizenship in the US? Or can it also include people like refugees? These are certain things that we'd want to know as we start researching this topic. Now second, a central part of this topic is restrictions. So we'd want to define the word restrictions. Are restrictions specific laws that prevent people from immigrating to the United States? That's an important thing that we'd want to know when we first start researching this topic. Third, an important word to define would be reduce. We can see that this topic isn't about whether we can increase restrictions, but instead it's about whether we can reduce or decrease them. And specifically, we might even want to know whether the word reduce could mean that we're getting rid of every immigration restriction in existence, or whether it just means getting rid of some immigration restrictions. We can find out all this information by defining these three super important words in the resolution. And you can see that the reason we chose these three words is because they're really central to understanding what the topic is about. You can notice that we didn't spend our time defining things like its or the, because those words just aren't as important as these three here. An important tip to remember as you're going forward is that whenever you're defining words in the resolution, you should make sure to define them in context. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, there are lots of different restrictions in the world. For example, there are traffic restrictions, things like red lights or stop signs or cones that people put out on the road to direct where cars go. But things like red lights and stop signs don't really make sense as types of immigration restrictions. Restrictions mean something very specific when we're talking about immigration policy. So we want to define restrictions in the context of immigration. In this sense, restrictions probably refers to specific laws that stop people or prevent them from immigrating to the US. So after defining these three most important words, we can see that this topic is about reducing restrictions or decreasing or removing laws that prevent people from legally immigrating to the US. Why don't you take a turn? Pause the video and try defining what you think are the four most important terms in the following resolution. The United States federal government should substantially increase its funding and/or regulation of elementary and/or secondary education in the United States. So these are the four most important terms that we defined. Why don't you compare what you have? First, we defined the word funding. Funding refers to the money that the government is giving to schools in order to pay for things like hiring teachers or textbooks. It doesn't refer to things like donations given to schools. And so by defining this word, we can see that this topic is about government funding to education in the US. Second word that we would want to define is regulation. Similar to the word restrictions on the immigration topic, there are tons of different regulations in the world, but we want to know what regulations include that are related to education or education policy. For example, does it include restrictions on what schools can serve kids at lunch? Does it include restrictions on what teachers can teach in schools? These could all be included as part of education regulations. Now, the third and fourth words we chose are elementary and secondary education. Elementary education usually refers to kindergarten through fifth grade, while secondary education includes middle school and high school. So by defining these two words, we can see that this topic isn't about funding and regulation to college education, but to funding and regulations of elementary and secondary education or kindergarten through high school. We chose these four words because unlike words like the or its, these four words are central to understanding what the education topic is about. And now that we understand their meaning, we can be more informed researchers and better choose and find information that's related to the topic. Keep in mind that at this point in the research process, when you're defining words in the resolution, your main goal is to understand what the topic is about. And you can do this by defining the most important words in the resolution. Keep in mind that you should also find definitions of any words that you don't know the answer to or the definition of. There are some words like immigration which you generally understand what they mean going into the topic. But there may be some words in a resolution that you've absolutely never heard of before, and you should make sure to look up those too. Because again, you want to understand what the resolution is about, and you can only do that by defining key terms in the resolution. Thank you for watching.